Welcome back to another episode of the Opposition Podcast, where you can catch up with all the episodes at theopposition.show. Why are you smiling? Rukshan starts every session with a smile. It's like I make his day just by being here. How you doing, Rukshan?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing good. Why is your book back? I thought we finished speaking about your book on the last episode.
I'm going to leave if you keep treating me like this. Today's an exciting session. I'm hearing an echo. Are the audience hearing that echo too?
No, I think it's just us hearing the echo. Can anyone hear an echo?
If you hear an echo, let us know in the comments and we will fire Rukshan.
And this is really live. I will be monitoring comments, guys. So depending on the comments, we might put them up if we have time.
So today we have a very special guest, Rukshan, and I'm not talking about the one who invited himself.
No, we'll bring him on soon too.
Introduce our guest.
I'll introduce our guest. So first up, we have from across the ditch, Chantelle Baker, all the way from New Zealand. Welcome.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Chantelle, I'm going to ask you politely once to talk close to the mic.
Okay.
Because we've had guests here before that have really let us down, and I hope you're not going to be the Jacinta
Hitler. What?
Can we
That was inappropriate.
Let's be careful and remember that this is going across platforms that don't let us actually say what we think. So just between, you know what I mean. Yeah.
Oh, child censor.
Child censor. There we go.
Yeah.
And we have the other guest we have is a very important man from New South Wales.
Yes, troublemaker, insider of violence.
That's right.
Yes.
Mr. Joel Jammal from Turning Point Australia. Welcome.
A pleasure to be here.
Welcome. What's happening, man? What's happening? What happened in Melbourne? What was meant to be happening?
Well, we were meant to be having a massive protest, so creating more work for you two in the protest movement to cover the lefties coming out this time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the Donald Trump Jr. Tour had to be postponed due to the visa dilemma, and I guess we'll get into that a bit later.
Okay. Yeah. There we go.
Rukshan, listen, I'm going to give you the same warning I gave Chantelle.
Yeah.
Your mic. Bring it close to your mouth.
Yeah.
As much as what you say is generally not that interesting, I just want the quality to be good.
There you go. It's right
That's
up and
better.
close, guys.
That's
It's really
better.
good. There you go.
Chantelle,
Ta-da! Sorry.
how you doing?
I'm tired. I was up at 3 and after no sleep, and I'm doing good. It's exciting. It's
3
good being back in
Melbourne time?
No, 3 New Zealand time, so 1 a.m. Melbourne time.
Yikes.
And now it's what? Is it? I don't know what it is. 9, 8, 9?
No,
Melbourne
don't wanna
or
know.
New Zealand?
New Zealand, I
10.
think Melbourne 8, 10 New Zealand,
10. Can you pronounce?
10.
Yeah.
10.
Get her to say yes.
I'll just pretend I'll pretend I've got a high-pitched, nasally 10.
Stop trying to be Ben Shapiro. So, what are you doing here?
Well, we were going to come over because we wanted to see exactly what Joel was talking about. We wanted to see DTJ, and so we brought the team, and then we found out it had been postponed, and we decided to still come and just interview as many people as we could, talk to lots of people. We wanted to see a big Antifa clash, actually, because we don't have them really in New Zealand. Like, Antifa in New Zealand are elderly white people that are terrified of the world. So I wanted to see some real,
Did you just call Chanel Lau an elderly white?
I don't even know if he's part of the Antifa that I've seen in New Zealand. He might say it on Twitter, but I've never seen him at an Antifa event per se in New Zealand.
I just want to point out, he released his book today.
He did.
He released a book today. I'm his biggest fan. But
Did you buy his book?
No, I'm still Jewish. I want a free copy. But he copied me.
What? Did he call it Yemini?
No, he's not that smart.
He made him look
he
taller.
published his book 2 weeks after me. Chanel. I think I should invite him to my book tour, my book launch in... Where is he? Is he in Auckland or Wellington?
I think he's in Auckland. I think he's an Aucklander. Yeah.
I'll invite him and he can come and we can swap books.
Great idea. I'm fascinated to see that play out in real life. Do you reckon he'd go on a podcast with you? Do you reckon he'd come on a debate?
Chanel Lau.
No, he's too much of a voice.
He won't go for a debate.
He'd
no.
hide.
Yeah, he
He'd
won't.
tweet about it though.
He'll threaten it and he'll cry and he'll say that he's really scared.
Yeah, terrified. Shaken to the core. He's so shaken that he needs an army of biological men to smash some grandmas because he is shook.
Yeah.
Shooketh.
Yeah.
No, someone was just asking, Chantelle, you were saying there's no proper Antifa in New Zealand. Someone was in the comments was just saying, what about those people at the Posey Parker protest? Who were they?
Yeah, but...
Because that was a bit wild, right? That was intense.
That was wild. I think, though, they weren't Antifa as such. Like, Antifa are a group of people that genuinely say they're Antifa. They've got their wee flag. They wear the, the black colours. Yeah. So, and there's a very, very small amount of them. Like, you look at their Facebook pages, there's no one on there ever.
Yeah.
But I think the people at the Posey Parker event were people that were genuinely so misled by the media and by people like Chanel that they actually thought that, Kelly J. Keane was some sort of white supremacist terrorist that they had to drive out. So I don't even think it wasn't your Antifa normal group of people that actually get together. It was a bunch of people that were actually scared, thinking that some sort of white supremacist was coming.
Well, they were worse. They were beating up grandmas, weren't they?
Yeah, and 2 people have been charged. And a big thing that's happened on Twitter this week is Spark New Zealand, which is a major mobile carrier in New Zealand. They put out a tweet in support of Chanel and against TERFs, and that's backfired on them horribly because people are saying, hold up, you are supporting the people that actually physically assaulted biological women that day, but you won't just say that women deserve a right to have a voice as well. So, yeah. It's been fascinating. I think it was actually great for New Zealand, because it opened up a conversation that nobody was having. And no one knew who Posey Parker was before the media and Chanel started screaming about her. And now she has a massive supporting base with people going, actually, women do deserve to have a voice. They do deserve to have a place in society. And you can't just scream at them and hit them and expect them to go away.
And such a basic thing, isn't it?
You would think so.
That's what I find fascinating about all of this, right, Joel? Like, it's so basic, the fact that, women, our mothers, our wives, our sisters, like we can't recognize them the same way anymore because that's offensive.
I think it's shocking for a lot of people. I mean, did you find that a lot of people in New Zealand, a lot of average people at home, didn't really pay attention to politics, but when they saw these protests, they were like, is this our democracy? I mean, was that sentiment there at all?
I think Kiwis in general are very relaxed people. We're not violent people. We're not very aggressive people. Like, yeah, you'll have lads that'll have a street fight now and again in New Zealand. But by and large, we're so relaxed that we kind of think, oh, that's somebody else's drama, someone else's problem. And so when the Posey Parker situation happened, it really shook many different subcultures of New Zealand to the core, because we realised our version of New Zealand has changed. And it's now becoming something that we don't recognise and we don't like anymore. And how do we go back to just being grounded in reality? At least that's the reaction I saw a lot online and from a lot of people.
Right, and quite a timely thing because you've obviously got your election in October this year.
Yeah, and we had wonderful Chrissy Hipkins. I call him Chrissy because people call him Chippy, and I don't think that he deserves the label of someone that's good with his hands or good with his mind, so I call him Chrissy. Chrissy Hipkins is running for Labour in New Zealand, so that'll be interesting. I mean, a few weeks prior to the Posey Parker event, he'd been on stage wearing like an intersex T-shirt and, championing all of that. Yeah. So we'll just see. I mean, you'll really see it play out in New Zealand. Are people going to stand by like reality, or are we going to go down a path where Labour just get to dictate what the new normal is?
Do you think these type of issues will be a focus of the election in New Zealand, or is there other issues which are like worse, like financial, economic situation?
Because he was asked about what is a woman, right, the other day.
That was pretty
that went in and
I love that he's like, I didn't have a pre-formulated answer for that one. you had a wife. I actually don't think he's got a wife anymore, but he had one.
That's so Kiwi though. He said the quiet part out loud. Yeah.
I think you'll notice with Chrissy, he doesn't really have very good media training.
Yeah.
And you see it in him when he goes around and goes to his speaking events. He just seems a bit nervous and kind of disassociated a little bit. He'll be quite dazed and off in the clouds. So I think that's probably just part of his media training.
So, what do you think is going to happen in this election? What are the polls saying? Not that we believe the polls, but...
The recent poll had National like a National Act coalition with potentially one other minor party that manages to claw out from the ground. What I've seen in New Zealand media is it does like to play dirty, particularly coming into election time. Yeah, and
I had no idea.
Shocking.
That the New Zealand press, like the New Zealand Herald, who ran a hit piece based on your rumour.
I know.
play dirty. Do you know they still
Well, I mean,
haven't
it wasn't a rumor. You told me you're coming. So
No, but
wasn't
it was a
but-
rumor for them.
Yeah, for them.
It was a
yeah,
rumor
they hadn't
for them.
clarified it from you. Yeah.
And they ran a whole hit piece based on that. And I'm still laughing because since I've now announced I'm coming for my book tour, so it's no longer a rumor. I'm really coming, and really all their worries should still be there. But suddenly they've got nothing to say about it.
Yeah. Radio silence.
Radio silence. So go on. So the New Zealand press plays dirty for those of you at home who are watching this and had no idea.
Yeah. For anyone that's been living under a rock, the New Zealand press does play dirty.
And I think it's important to clarify how much funding they
Yes.
get, right? The press in New Zealand get funding from the government. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you've got the Public Interest Journalism Fund, but you've got grants outside of that as well. But the Public Interest Journalism Fund is one of the main ones, which is sitting around $51 million a year, which for other countries is not very much money, but for New Zealand it's still a decent amount.
What's the
because
ABC?
we're tiny.
The ABC is a billion.
Few
here.
billion?
It's
Yeah.
one. I think it's at least
1 billion.
1 billion for
Yeah,
SBS.
but I don't. To
These
be
aren't
fair,
are these
no,
public
this is
broadcasters?
not public broadcasters. This is on
Yeah.
top of. This is extra money they were splashing during COVID, and the thing that gets me is that through COVID, every media company, including alternative media like us, had the most eyeballs. They were thriving during COVID because everybody was stuck at home watching them. So I don't understand why they needed more money. It was literally the only business that was thriving,
Maybe
or
it
one
was-
of the only businesses thriving through COVID. It's such a
incentive,
scam.
an
Yeah.
incentive.
They just were buying. It was bought and paid for in New Zealand, 100%.
Well, they had a clause in the funding that you had to present the story you wanted to tell, and then they'd sign off on it before you got the funding.
The government.
For it. Yeah. Yeah.
You know they have a
So-
similar thing in China.
Yeah, well, I mean, Chris Hipkins is saying that he doesn't think Xi Jinping's a dictator, and we signed an agreement with, I believe it was Australia and a few others, about our national security, like America, Canada, and 5 days later he announced he was running to China to go and meet with Xi Jinping. So I feel like every step of the way they just absolutely, I can't use the word that I want to use, but they turn their backs on the people that actually really should matter.
Yeah. Do you think the fact that Jacinta resigned when she did, do you think that may save Labor? Because she was no way going to win.
No.
And it was clear. I know that, like, they like to present it as a brave thing that she knew when she was tired. The dodgy New Zealand press again, the way they framed that, as if the rest of the world is so blind and dumb. We didn't know what was going on. Why Jacinta quit? She quit because it was clear on every poll, everywhere, she was so unpopular. Was this a last ditch to potentially save Labor, and may it work?
I think it's the best shot that they've got by a country mile. They knew that they could never re-elect her, that she was so unpopular that people would comment on videos like they feel physically sick just seeing her face. Like, it would actually make people physically feel unwell because of the kind of trauma that she'd put people under and the country under. So I think because of that, she knew she couldn't run again. She said she'd see out her term. She didn't. She left early. And that just gave Chrissy enough time in front of the cameras for people to try and soften him up, to make him seem warm and personable, to understand who he is as a man, to go up against Luxon. So we've got two Chris's. One of them is National, which is your kind of Liberal, and one of them is Labor, which is the same as you guys.
Can I just say regarding elections, because in Australia, these guys have the protest coverage covered.
Yeah.
But when it comes to
We
elections...
pretty much have everything covered. But
everything but how to vote cards. So when it comes to elections, people get used to these eyebrows. They're like, where's Joel? New Zealand's parliament is really interesting. And I'm going to put my nerd hat on for a second. You don't have an upper house and a lower house. You've fused the houses. So you've got individual seats that represent areas, but you also have, in the same chamber, people that you add all the votes together and they form,
Yeah.
How does that work? And to what extent does that form a majority to? And do you think Labor will get the majority after this election from that?
It's really hard to say. I mean, you've got gang members that are advocating, that are teaching people how to vote. They're saying you should party vote Labor and then candidate vote in your local area the Greens, so then they'll have a coalition partner.
Yep.
So then you can try and get in more candidates and they can make sure they get the party, and then that way they'll have the majority numbers for their coalition. So,
hold on, did you say the gangs are
Yeah, the
voting
gangs.
Greens?
Yeah.
Greens.
Yeah.
Greens and Labor.
Oh, yeah.
The gangs. And they've publicly said this. They've commented online. They've publicly talked
Are
about
these
it.
motorcycle gang?
Yeah, like hardcore gangs. I don't want to say names.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
To be honest, like it's quite an intimidating. Like
So it's like the unions, right?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
okay.
a gang
There you
union.
go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But do they have green motorcycles? That's just what I want to know.
I think it's more funding. Because
Yeah.
in New
Look,
Zealand,
it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter.
yeah, I know, but-
Today, what's her name? Faruqi. What's her name?
Senator Faruqi.
Oh,
Senator
I think-
Faruqi.
Yeah.
She's a
Marine
great-
Faruqi.
Yeah,
Is he the one
she's a
who's
great
cutting
senator.
down- cutting down the
And
trees?
she's cutting down all the trees to build her mansion.
I love
Isn't she Sri Lankan?
She's Pakistani.
Pakistan. Same thing.
Yeah, Pakistani.
That's a bit of Black
Pauline's
Lives
in
Matter
court right
energy,
now.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty much.
Did I
the
just
same.
say that
It's
live?
pretty much the same thing. Yeah, it's a subcontinent. We're all the same.
We can. Oh, this is live. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back.
But yeah, but I think back to your point, it is interesting the way it's set up because we don't have a really clear separation of powers. But what they're wanting to do now is introduce a lot more of co-governance and co-governance on every level. So it started out being more about natural resources, and now it's gone into like public sector areas as well.
Yep.
But a big thing, I think there'll be a lot of massive topics coming into this election. Co-governance is kind of leading the charge with people going, do we want a racially charged nation? Do we want to go back to making racist policies based on skin colour? And a big problem with co-governance is they're saying you can just self-identify. So you can self-identify to get certain privileges. And so there's a whole lot of divisive stuff around that. There's a lot of division around crime. Our crime rates are astronomical at the moment. So the gang is saying...
Is she
"Oh,
still
how can we
talking
vote
about
for
New
Labour?"
Zealand or Australia now?
Well, look, I mean,
it's the same thing everywhere from what I can see.
I was going to say, co-governance is what we're talking about in Australia, isn't it? Right now with the
With the
voice.
voice, yeah.
It's Australia. It's an advisory body. Is that what it is in New Zealand? Is it an advisory body?
It started that way.
Is it? Starts that way?
It's meant to be like they again. It kind of starts out as one thing and morphs into something else. And now they're kind of saying co-governance isn't even enough, where they'd have a 50-50 split. And I mean, you've got to remember the percentage of people that are Māori are about 15% in New Zealand. So you've got 15% that would control 50%, and then that 50% of that with the Māori side of the co-governance would actually have veto over the rest of New Zealand's votes. So you've got an entire nation made up of multicultural aspects and diversity.
So you're saying it didn't start out this way? It's gradually.
No, it's gradually.
It's gradually.
Yeah, but now
this
they're
way.
saying that co-governance isn't going to be enough. They want to take it further.
Oh, so it's not enough.
Exactly.
It never is. You're
and so
always
with
going to
you-
need to take more.
So with you guys, I want to give us Australian audience some understanding of what. So the voice for us, for you guys, correct me if I'm wrong. It was called the Waitangi Tribunal.
Yeah.
And then from there, they used that. It started off as an advisory body, and now you have individual seats that are actually have to be Maori people.
Yeah, so you've got the Māori electorate role.
Yeah.
So it's a separate kind of almost electoral like voting system. But then the Electoral Commission actually ruled a few years, well not ruled, but they gave advice nearly 10 years ago, I think it was, saying that we don't actually need those seats anymore because Māori are now accurately represented in Parliament.
Right.
And so the current Parliament we have now, they're overrepresented. And just by overrepresented, I mean like there's more based on the pure population numbers.
Yep.
But yet it seems like it's never going to be enough.
So
and we don't have any limits. Like some countries have limits on you have to be a certain percentage to then identify as that, to then get privileges to certain aspects. In New Zealand, we don't have that. So you could be, the tiny tip of your pinky could be Māori and you could claim benefits over somebody else.
In Australia, we have overrepresentation now. It's a little over 5% of our members in Parliament are Aboriginal, whereas they only make up like 3.5% of the Australian population. That's the fact check you watch.
I mean,
But
I found
it's
it
nuts.
interesting living here.
What was
'cause
it? What was it? I missed that one.
I was just
The
saying that
percentages.
we're going to get fact checked because,
Yeah. Over
because
what?
it's over 5% of our sitting members are Aboriginal.
I thought it was 8%. But yeah.
No. It's just I mean it's over 5, so
Yeah.
it's 8. Yeah, they'll
So
fact
what
check
did
that.
we say?
But it's actually no. What I just said is it's over 5% Aboriginals in Parliament. So they're overrepresented because they only make up like about little over 3% of the population. That's what Jacinta Price has said. So.
I remember finding it interesting because I lived in Melbourne nearly 10 years ago, but I found it very interesting how Aboriginals were treated like in the public domain, in the media domain, in the government domain compared to Māori in New Zealand. Like we have a really respectful relationship. Like to us, it's like Māori were champions, they were warriors, they were the fighters, still are to this day, Like no one wants to be in a scrap with, there's a line of respect there that we have and we love the culture and it's a massive part of New Zealand. So I don't think it's the same here in Australia. Well, it wasn't when I lived here 10 years ago. I felt like people were more disrespectful of the Aboriginal culture. I felt it was very different coming from someone who, like, our country really does care about that side of our history and our side of our culture. I did feel like there was a big divide when it came to Australians.
It's very different. I think because I was discussing this with my best mate is Maori, and we were discussing this because we talk about when we train. He's about, listen, we're best friends because I'm too scared to say no. He's about 5 times my size, and we train all the time together. And he thinks that the reason why it's like exactly as you describe is because in New Zealand everyone knows a Maori. Everybody has, whereas in Melbourne, most people in Melbourne haven't even met an Indigenous Aussie, an Aboriginal. In Sydney, maybe a bit different. You have Redfern, but
there's barely any.
but there's still barely any.
Yeah, but look, 80%.
But there's 15%. 15% you said is Maori in New Zealand. That's the difference. Whereas here,
a little over 3%.
3%, and they're so remote.
Well, actually,
The real ones, the non-Lydia thought.
The stats are 20% are rural, 80% are urban. Now, I question that 80%. Because they're going to be, as you said, you don't test it. Yeah. And that's what people like Pauline Hanson have been demonised, and Mark Latham for saying,
Isn't she Indigenous?
Is she?
She looks pretty Aboriginal.
I think you're getting confused with Bob Catter. He's actually Indigenous.
Oh, is he really? I was just making...
Yeah, I think he's Lebanese.
I thought it was her red hair that really got me.
But no, there's no means test for this. Not means test. They don't. You're not allowed to ask for someone's biological test.
I got a mate, and I'm not going to out him, but I got a mate, because you know how you have the boxes, and he ticks his kids go to a public state school, and he ticks the Indigenous box for his kids, and they literally call him whenever there's anything, welcome to country or anything Aboriginal to give them the honours to do it, and they are pale white, albino looking, and he just laughs, and that's that. But he's mocking the system, but that is the system, and it's such a joke because anyone can identify as...
It's nuts.
Indigenous.
So in Australia, $30 to $40 billion every year, every budget is given to Aboriginals for Aboriginal organisations, Aboriginal initiatives, like in construction. I'm from the construction industry. If you wanted to get and to tender for a government job, there used to be specific trades where it said it has to be an Aboriginal company or an Aboriginal tradesman or...
and what do they do in the building industry when it has to be when you get those perks as Aboriginal owned? What do? They sell part ownership to one part Aboriginal person.
And they say don't even bother coming to work.
Don't come.
Just
they give them a percentage, and they get the... I know that works in the security industry because a lot of the government... contracts, they especially in Victoria, they want to be able to tick that box that it's in an Aboriginal security company. And the best example of that, and it's not the only example, but during hotel quarantine in COVID, it was given to a company based on that criteria, that they ticked that box over any other better security company because it mattered, so that the government could say they're funding Aboriginal. And the funny thing is that company was not even Aboriginal. It was one guy that gets paid to head the company.
It's nuts.
It's a scam. It's all scams.
Yeah. And
so these guys are the biggest grifters in the world. I don't know why everyone taxed you and me, Rukshan.
I mean, I think there's a vast difference, and I believe it's the same here in the Aboriginal community. I think there's a vast difference between the people that are making a lot of money, that are gleaning the system to the ends of the earth, and the average everyday person that is suffering, that does actually need help. There was a senator here I wanted to meet with, but I don't think that she'll have the time. I think it's Jacinta Price. It used to be the mayor of Alice Springs. Now, that's someone that I would really love to have a conversation, because that's someone that cares about her community, has lived it, is passionate about it. She would have some real solutions that I think would probably be quite applicable to what we go through in New Zealand. Because even we had the massive Napier floods, and that decimated some of the best fertile soil that we've got in New Zealand. And there's a place called Wairoa, and it's a tiny little township, very poor. People are really suffering there. But you didn't see these massive iwi organisations going in, clearing up homes, rebuilding building it, looking after the people that are really suffering there that are Māori. They weren't there. You had a lot of independent, random organisations, a lot of people that I know from different kind of freedom-y groups took their friends there, the organisations went in and helped dig people out, dig the houses out. And so I think there's just, you've got the elite type people that are running these major organisations, billions of dollars worth, and just sucking money out of the system left, right and centre. And then you've got the people that actually need help. And it's why are we not providing services to them that are actually effective? And it's not like a race-based system. Like in New Zealand, we were introducing, you'll get points if you're Māori, and then that way you can have elective surgeries ahead of someone that's white or Chinese. It's not
that's what
that
I was
type
going to
of
ask
system.
about. Yeah, because that got a bit of attention around the world.
Yeah,
because it did feel like some sort of human rights style abuse almost.
But you're not addressing the core issues. So we don't even, we're not looking at the data properly. So if you look at the data behind why some groups are suffering more in their health outcomes, and then you look at the rates of obesity, the rates of smoking, the rates of alcoholism, it's pretty much like that 10% is all equated for when we look at the actual data of where it's going wrong. So then you look at the why is it going wrong there? Why are there more alcoholics? Why are there more smokers? Why is the obesity rate higher? Often, and this sounds like an odd thing to say, but fatherlessness is a massive problem within these communities. And rather than addressing those issues and actually looking at how we can, this is a random thought that I had, but even like community mentors, where you've got people that go in that really work with the communities, help educate them, we should be throwing way more money into that than just trying to create a racially divisive health system.
Can I just want to make it clear, you are having all these kind of issues in New Zealand still, even with co-governance, even with having...
Well, co-governance is something they're bringing in slowly, but it hasn't...
But I'm just saying, in general, there is an advisory group that's been around for a long time in your country.
Well, the problem with co-governance is you're just centralising the control to a very, very small amount of people. So those people that are great at gleaning the system, like Nanaima Hooter and her family, they're the ones that will be controlling that kind of outcome.
So like
They'll be the ones
activist class, a sophisticated activist.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we heard in Alice Springs when we went there. It was the same story.
The people in Alice Springs didn't know who these activists...
They didn't even know who these politicians who were claiming to represent them, they didn't know any of them. They knew Jacinta Price, but...
Peter Dutton, that's such an ABC question. The journalist, it was like, do you live here? Have you seen what these people are going through?
Yeah, do you actually care?
Yeah.
Well, this is the problem that I have. If you centralise control to a small amount of people that aren't elected the same way, that have an astronomical level of influence over and above the average person, then if you get someone, say, from a foreign country that decides to bribe somebody, that small group of people that have a lot of influence would be the easiest ones to target. You're just taking control away from a democratic system and giving it to an undemocratic one, and it doesn't make sense in a modern day and age. This is even a conversation that we're having.
So for the New Zealanders that are listening, just for context, what's being proposed so far is a body of 24 members on this sort of board style thing. Who's going to make this board up? You can probably safely assume it's the very people for the last 30, 40, 50 years that have been getting $30 to $40 billion every year to do nothing.
You're talking about The Voice?
The Voice. And
so let me just get this right. She's making an argument for The Voice, yeah? She thinks we should have a voice here in Australia as well because it's working out so well in New Zealand.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Literally.
That's what I'm getting.
It's a great sell.
It works.
Yeah.
It's a great sell for the people that are wanting to make money.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
I might tick that Aboriginal box and join The Voice.
I think if you were a bad person, you'd be all about this.
Yeah.
If you were kind of a dodgy, corrupt
Racist
person, you would be frothing at the potential of what this could do.
But there's so many inner city, like lefty type, a lot of Caucasian white people.
Yeah, but they're uninformed and they just listen to the news and they assume that that's actually real. And then they just go with it. And they don't look to people like Jacinta.
They vote emotionally. They vote emotionally.
Yeah.
How can you not support an Aboriginal voice?
Is it like white guilt? Do they feel guilty? Is there an element of that when it comes to these kind of conversations?
It could be white guilt, but it also could be the fact that they're just told that regardless of if they're white or whatever colour that they are, that they're a better person if they listen to the media and they go with what the media are telling them to do. It's like, this is what the good people of society do. These are what the acceptable people do. And anyone that thinks outside of that is unacceptable and a bad person, probably a white supremacist, most likely a Jewish. Can't probably say that word if it's being streamed on other platforms, but they'll categorize and label people that have any diversity of thought, and that's the real issue that's going on at the moment. And I mean, the media regulators that they're trying to bring in New Zealand, and I know they're trying to do the same thing here in the UK and Ireland. it's essentially that. It's how can we control that flow of information as much as possible to then guilt people into our way of thought.
And that segues nicely into one of the issues that we're dealing with, which is misinformation, disinformation, and laws around this in Australia. Now, I feel like New Zealand is a bit more advanced than Australia when it comes to this. I'll give you guys this much. in terms of shutting down debate and calling everything disinformation and misinformation, New Zealand seems to be really far ahead.
They win. They
win
shut you down early.
Yeah, what did you do exactly?
What did I do? That's a really good point. Well, we've just had, I've done Privacy Act requests to our government to get all the information they hold about me. Now, I don't think they've given me very much of it. I think they've given me a small portion. But even in that, we can see that Jacinda Ardern's office was emailing with NetSafe to get content of mine taken down that she didn't like. And there were examples in there of content that I produced that got, I think she did a piece on Ashley Bloomfield, it got a few hundred shares. I did a piece on the same day and it got thousands. And the communication there was they did not like the reach that my content was having because it was showing an opposing voice to Jacinda and it wasn't giving her the power that she desperately wanted.
Yeah. So had you broken any laws? Was there any kind of hate speech laws?
No, we don't have anything like that.
Because that's what people think. If someone's been taken off, they've done something illegal technically. But you're saying it was just an opposing view. We
don't have anything like hate speech laws. So what they did is they got the Code of Conduct, the NZ Tech Code of Conduct. They got companies like Twitter, Google, everyone like that to sign on to, which is basically their misinformation code of conduct that they can say, oh, we should use that new code of conduct to get this censored. But what they've introduced recently, so I've had this debate with different groups because we've got groups like the Free Speech Union in New Zealand that do a great job, but I said I don't think we live in a democracy anymore. Their spokesperson was upset about that. But to me, they tried to introduce hate speech laws with Jacinda. Chrissy Hipkins comes along, they decide not to go ahead with those laws, but now they're introducing a media regulator, which would be completely unelected and could fine the media companies like Facebook and Google $200,000 per post that they don't like.
So you guys are doing that as well. So New Zealand's doing that right now as well.
Isn't it funny that all these countries are doing this?
Lockstep is the word, I think. Lockstep.
Yeah. So is it the WEF, is it the UN? But everyone's doing it simultaneously at the same time, and they're going above the democratic process. They don't even care about it. People submit now. We had, I think, 16,000 submissions against a bill the other day. There was only about 4% for the bill, and they just decided they didn't need to listen to the submissions because it was probably just a group that got together. So if you can dismiss people's voices like that, what kind of power, like what can the people do? Where does it stop?
Because that's the thing. I never see with this kind of misinformation, disinformation thing, you don't see the public asking for it. I mean, the public asks for so many other things, but the government never reacts. But they act with these things like
but the public doesn't know what's good for them. Come on. The public don't even think masks work. The public do not know what they're talking about.
That's true.
Can I just say with the
we got to silence Rukshan sometimes.
with the coordination thing you were alluding to, Chantelle, I don't want to go back to the voice discussion, but I don't think it's a mistake that they planned the voice referendum around the time of your election in October. See, the voice is expected to be called in October, November or December this year. It has to be within the next 6 months. I reckon it's because you guys have the antidote to defeating the voice in Australia. And I think this misinformation bill that we're facing here and the misinformation, you guys being tied up in an election, it's going to work very much in the favour of the establishment in this country where all the media, all the corporations are getting behind this, or big tech, they're devoting millions of dollars, I reckon, in my opinion, towards fact checkers to bolster them so that they can censor more of us. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous.
Why do you know so much about New Zealand?
Because it's a secret to us winning. I mean, this is our Brexit moment. We just haven't worked it out yet. If we win this, we will quantify the size of mainstream Australia. We have a parliamentary democracy. It's not a binary vote. This is the first time we've ever done a binary vote in decades. And it's going to quantify how many people like you and me, reasonable people, there are. See, in main elections, we have, the Liberal Party, we have 10 minor parties, basically they're the same party. This is the first time we will actually see, 50% of America voted for Trump or 50% of people voted for Brexit. If they're stupid enough to take this to a vote, it's going to be the turning point for the country per se. A lot of people ask me, when's the turning point?
But Joel,
I like how he
put that in there.
Turning point.
But what does that
Clever.
do? What does that do? Let's say it's a no vote, and that's what gets up. The way that this is all being projected in the media, isn't that going to tear the country apart regardless? There is going to be this divide in this country.
There was a great interview moment between Douglas Murray and John Anderson, former Deputy Prime Minister for Australia. And John's like, I just feel like, he said, I think that all of this is just sort of tearing us apart rather than uniting us. And Douglas Murray just looked at him and said, what if that's the point? And then John just looked at him stunned and in horror. And then Douglas Murray said again, what if that's the point? That's the joke. The statesmen on the Conservative side, they can't even fathom in their wildest dreams that the left is trying to tear us apart.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's happening. I don't know which organisation, which globalist organisation is behind this. But Australia, the Anglosphere, the Five Eyes countries, we are having a crisis of conscience. That's what Jordan Peterson said to me. And we are trying to remember who we are because we've forgotten. And it's a rife moment for the communists to come in, the cultural Marxists to come in, to make us confused about, forget about what is a woman, what is a man? Where are the men? What? Since when do men not just stand up to the mutilation of children? I mean, that's how bad things have gotten. We don't know the Judeo-Christian values. We've become a godless society. That's what's going on here. It's about dividing us. All of these things, that's the root of it. The left don't have a unifying ideology. It's about division and destruction. They don't know how to build.
So we're pretty much screwed either way.
No, we're going to win the no vote.
I mean, yeah,
it's going to be the
I'm saying
turning
even
point.
if we win, I think my personal view on all of this is, as the fabric of society is going to be torn apart.
But I do think that if we win this no vote, which at this stage it looks like that, I think it's the beginning of the end of Labor. Right now,
I mean,
Labor
our Prime Minister
controls.
should step down. Anthony Albanese should step down.
If you look at the map, Australia is Labor now on every level, state and federally. But if the no,
Someone's having a good time outside.
Yeah.
They've found us.
Rukshan,
Harvey.
I thought you soundproofed this place.
I'm only Sri Lankan, guys.
You're one.
There's only so little soundproofing that I can do.
We're in
as a
your
Sri Lankan.
grandmother's basement, and we still hear the army coming.
We were naive to think Dan Andrews would just allow us to host the debate.
I think we should head to some comments because we should give people the voice.
Very good.
I'll monitor comments now. We'll keep chatting. I'll
Oh, you haven't been
No, I haven't been monitoring them. I mean, there's
soundproofing in
there's
this
so many.
place.
There's so many comments coming in.
I would like to ask something. As a Kiwi who watched, I used to live here, love Melbourne. It's an amazing city. I could not understand how it turned totalitarian so quickly, and then how Dan Andrews got re-elected. How did that even happen? What caused that?
I have an answer for that.
Yeah.
And so
Please.
so
The guy from Sydney is
Yeah,
going to
the guy
tell
from-
you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why, and I'm not trying to pump
All
my
right,
tires.
eyebrows, hit us.
He's trying to pump his tires.
It's Mr.
He's trying to
Eyebrows,
pump his
Chantelle.
tire.
There it is.
I didn't even have to do it.
So when it comes to, I'm self-deprecating. Like I give you permission. So 100 days before the election, and this is what I mean. I don't mean to pump my tires up. I did actually predict what was going to happen, and I said, guys, not only will Dan Andrews win a majority in the lower house, he will win his seat, and it'll be a left-leaning upper house in a minority. Now, the reason why this is happening around the country is you can't just have Labor bad. They locked everyone down. And this is my warning to New Zealand. If you don't have a viable opposition that stands for something, you're effed. That's the problem. And so it doesn't matter your parliamentary system. If you're not putting forward and standing for something, it doesn't matter if you've got Hitler you're running against. You literally have to stand for something. That's the problem. So in Victoria, they had, just for example, their climate change net zero target was more advanced than the federal Labor parties. And in New South Wales, the day after because New South Wales Labor also won, the day after the New South Wales, the Victorian election loss to Dan Andrews, on the Wednesday they came out and endorsed The Voice. Long story short, they lost as well. So around the country, in Queensland, it's Palaszczuk, Labor. She had a similar thing. She will win again in October next year if the Liberal government up there, who didn't pre-select Gerard Rennick, the man with the biggest Liberal following for a sitting member.
The only one I've ever had a crush on. I've interviewed. I'm not kidding. Sorry, my husband's in here. He knows.
I'm looking at it.
He knows.
But she'll win
he's
as
brilliant
well.
mind. Fantastic.
You need an opposition. That's the point. And so that's my warning to New Zealand. I mean, if the supposed conservative
They're not
party
conservative.
there.
They're not conservative. They're I don't even know if they're centre right. Really, they're more. Yeah, I mean, right, even centre right's a real push for our national. They're definitely a lot more liberal. But I think that under Chris Luxon, they don't have that strong opposition, and that is their biggest downfall right now. They have a man in there who's wishy-washy. He doesn't inspire people. He's not very interesting, and he only stands on something once he feels like the popularity has already swung. So he'll never be ahead of an issue, and it's a real problem for him. If National had a leader like Simon O'Connor, someone that actually did have traditional values, I think they'd have a much better shot because he's strong, he has conviction, he actually cares about something. When Chris speaks, it's like listening to someone say what they think you want to hear, but they don't actually really believe it. When Simon speaks, you really passionately believe that man is going to get things done. And I think that's probably the difference with Dan Andrew. I mean, he's so full of it, but he's passionately full of it. You know, you trust he's going to achieve whatever he tries.
Look, Joel, I agree with you for once.
I don't believe it.
You're right. And I think there is no opposition. And it was funny, Rukshan, we were talking about this just when you made me go to 7-Eleven and buy a coffee because you don't have a coffee machine here in the studio. And on the radio, we were listening to the news, and it was James Patterson, who I happen to like. He's one of the Liberals that is generally okay. Like, he's decent on many issues. But they were talking about Australian funding to Ukraine, whatever it is, today's announcement. Who knows? We're paying for something else in somebody else's war again.
More billion, yeah.
But instead of the opposition being an opposition to it, and it doesn't matter where you stand on the Ukraine war, I don't care. But we're in Australia and we're going through a cost of living crisis. I think the last thing we need to be focusing on is other people's wars.
That's right.
And instead of there being an opposition, James Patterson, who is a decent conservative from the Liberal Party, is arguing that no, Labor bad. They're not giving enough to Ukraine.
Yeah, literally.
And I think if that's our good conservatives in the Liberal Party, we have zero chance. I'm just hoping that this voice vote,
it's the turning point. I'm telling you.
but I hope it blows it all up. That even without the opposition, the voice is just going to blow up in Labor's face, which at the moment it looks like that, but there's so much time before anything could happen. I wouldn't put my money on no winning, because the Liberal Party just have this knack, this ability to stuff everything up so well that I have faith in them.
It's not up to them.
Yeah, but
No, hang on. Let me put it to you this way. I keep saying it's like Brexit. It's like Trump. How much did Hillary spend compared to Trump? We all know the answer. It's like twofold. What happened with Brexit? What happened with the Netherlands? Andrew Neil gave the game away 3 or 4 months ago. He went on Q&A, on our ABC's Q&A, and he gave the game away. I was so annoyed.
Their ABC.
Their ABC, as Corey Bernardi would say. He said in the Netherlands they were voting on whether they should join the European Union, and he said all the corporations were in support of it. All the trade unions were in support of it. Almost all the media was in support of it. The establishment was in support of it, yet the people voted no. There is this was a convict nation. This is a nation where it's full of immigrants. This is a nation where the Indigenous had a government impose itself on them, not only recently with the jabs, but back in our founding. No one likes the government. No one likes the media. Like, they are going to... If Peter Dutton, for some stupid reason, I don't think he'll do this, said, you know what, Albo, I had it wrong, I want to support the voice, we would still win. It's because it has become the anti-establishment battle. Remember this, Albanese didn't get into Parliament and become the Prime Minister with 50% of the vote. He got in with about 35 to 40% of the vote. Same with Joe Biden. People didn't vote Trump out. Sorry, people didn't vote Biden in, they voted Trump out.
I'm going to fact check you. He's the most popular president in the history of the United States.
Votes. 80 million
Come
votes.
on, mate.
I love him so
That's
much.
a problem with Turning Point. They're conspiracy here in America. They import their Trump style. That's what Linda Burney says.
I'll answer your question about Victoria and Daniel Andrews.
Thank you, 10 minutes.
Because we're from
10 minutes of rambling and I'll get an answer from Rukshan. Thank you.
She knows the dynamic.
No opposition.
Here for 10 minutes, she knows the dynamic of Victoria.
You worked it out. So this is why.
Look, Victoria. I don't like using this term, but it's pretty cooked here. Victoria is pretty cooked. I think people love it. It's like what is it? Stockholm syndrome. What is it?
Oh yeah.
We call it Melbourne syndrome.
Melbourne syndrome. Like we love being under the thumb. I feel like with a lot of these issues, like they love the government telling them what to do on anything. We saw that obviously during the pandemic. Like that was
Govern me harder, daddy.
govern me harder. Yeah, it was.
It's Gerard Rennick.
Is that a T-shirt?
That was,
It should
all-
be.
that was Gerard Rennick. It's
It was
on
all
hand
about
side.
that. So I think it's probably getting worse. I think Victoria is one of the states in terms of even this voice thing where it's definitely
Yeah, it's
going to
in.
be a yes.
Yeah, it's in.
Like definitely.
Yeah, no,
like,
it's definitely the ranking. The ranking is from no to yes. It goes Queensland, WA, South Australia, New South Wales, either Tasmania or Victoria. So I don't know which one, but it's looking like it's definitely. We only need to win 3 states to nuke this thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and we've got this. I mean, I think New South Wales it's heavily under represented. I reckon there's a lot of Middle Easterners that see this for what it is.
Well, that's the thing with the ethnics. Like, you know, one of the things when my family in Australia, I feel like I'm a part of this country, and I feel Aboriginal, Australian. It doesn't matter. We're all like the same. I have that feeling, and I think a lot of immigrants have that, but they're getting tricked as well by the government. Like a lot of these, like Labor and stuff. Maybe you can answer this question, Joel. But a lot of these kind of Labor Party, they're working within these communities, doing these outreach programs. And when you're seeing, these kind of parades for the voice or whatever they do, these rallies, they're getting the ethnics out there dressed up in ethnic attire, playing drums and doing all this kind of ethnic stuff, supporting the voice to Parliament. But I don't think they really understand what it means, because if you look at ethnic countries, they would never give up certain, you know what I mean? They wouldn't co-govern and do all these type of things. Like we've come away from those problems to a country like Australia where we can all live together in peace and harmony without having all these differences and civil wars and ethnic conflicts and stuff like this. So I think ethnics in general like the idea of everyone being equal, but they're being told that to be a good citizen, you have to recognize something that maybe is not in your best interest for the country in general, is my perception.
But I think it depends where. I think Melbourne, again, you're looking at Victoria, Melbourne is very different to the ethnics.
No, look, yes, it's different.
In
Yes.
Sydney, I think the ethnics in Sydney are probably a bit more anti-establishment and government at the moment. They were traditionally Labor, but I think they're not falling for that.
No, look, they're late. They are. Western Melbourne is similar to Western and Southwest Sydney, very ethnic. If you draw a line across Sydney from the top left to the bottom right, that gives you a demographics of who's wealthy and who's not. Obviously, not wealthy is on the north. But the ethnics in Sydney, yes, they are very much anti-establishment. But this is the problem. The biggest threat, and I said this to Warren Mundine a couple nights ago, isn't the yes side.
I love how much you name drop in this podcast.
It's important because
We should do a reel, Benji,
name
do a
drops.
reel of all the name drops. And then end it with Turning Point Australia.
It's all about credit, man. I don't want to steal it as my own words.
No, we're just bantering. You invited yourself onto this show.
Exactly.
You're going to cop it.
Well, it needed some spice, so I think.
What are you trying to say, man? I'm not spicy.
We've got an Arab and a Jew on the
you know
same
what?
show.
Yeah, maybe if you got an Indian, it's a bit more spice.
My white girl salt didn't do it for him.
Rukshan, I just want to point out, you're the border between Israel and Lebanon.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's right. I don't want to be here.
Oh, God.
Go on.
I actually don't even know. No, I know what I was saying. So the ethnics in Sydney, they have an inherent distrust of government. The biggest threat to the no side isn't the yes side. It's the no vote side. In Sydney, we have 16% of people, they don't vote. We have mandatory voting in Australia. 16% is 4 Mark Lathams. That's 1 senator every election. Like, this is, if it continues to grow, and it's in southwest Sydney, I mean, in Bankstown, there's a 20% invalid vote rate, people not voting or screwing up their ballot. You could say it's language barrier. You could say it's they don't understand the system or they don't identify with either of the parties. But the point is, if we lose, it's because people aren't showing up and they're getting disillusioned with the system. So more and more, we're going to be governed by a smaller and smaller percentage of voters that are the left-wingers that are coming out and voting. That's what I'm worried about. And so if we have...
That almost sounds like an argument for for mandatory voting. You want mandatory voting?
Well, it's not working because we have it.
We have it and it's not working, but I would love if we dropped it. I don't think we should have mandatory voting because I
agree.
feel like many of the people that vote that don't care.
Yeah.
Firstly, I don't think they should have a say if you don't care. If you don't care, just if you're apathetic about it, don't have a say. And secondly, I just think they're making stupid choices for no reason. So they're affecting us.
My personal view is if you pay your taxes in the last within the last 3 financial years, your personal income tax, you should be able to vote.
You're entitled. I'm not saying we should take away the vote,
you're
except from women.
No, mandatory. Entitled to vote. Yeah.
That was a joke. That was.
I'm just thinking of your poor
Randy,
mother.
do not make a reel out of that one.
Well, if you take voting away from women, you could technically be taken away from men now. So
A lot of people
Yeah,
don't. A lot of people don't know.
it's an equal joke.
A lot of people don't know how the vote came about. It came out because a lot of men, they were obviously sent to war, and it's like, well, if you're old enough to go to war, then you should be able to have a right to vote whether we go to the war. And then it grew into, okay, we're going to give the vote to women now because, equal citizenship and the suffrage movement.
If you're going to feed the guy that goes to war, you
Feed
should
the
have
guy.
the right.
If you're going to create the men that go to war.
Oh, there we go. That was a feminist. I like it. I like it.
9 months in the womb, I'm going to have a say.
I don't know if that's accurate though. I'm pretty sure men can give birth.
Yo, fact check.
Not biological ones.
I don't know.
Do you wanna hear
Anyone watching, I'm joking. I don't actually believe this stuff, but yeah.
Aren't you pregnant?
I am pregnant right now, yes. With twins. And I'll be chest feeding when I'm done.
Do you want to hear a funny random fact? Is I used to work in Bankstown.
Really?
I probably can't walk down there anymore.
That must have been a long time.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I used to do door knocking for AAPT in New South Wales. In Parramatta was the office.
So you've been grifting for a long
time. I was door knocking, and you want to know something funny? Is like every time I knocked on the door, they're like, "Oh, cuz, where you from?" And I'll be like,
Did you see one?
Israel. Oh my God, we're basically cousins.
Oh, dear.
And I'll be like, yeah, the kind of cousin that won't turn his back on you. It was probably your family, but let's
Probably.
not.
I mean, I do live in Parramatta, so I've always lived
There we go. I probably sold you a dodgy AAPT pack. Anyways, don't be angry.
Probably why you moved out.
It was I actually kind of liked it.
Why'd you move?
I liked it. No, I didn't live there.
Everyone's
I didn't live there.
Everyone's
I lived
getting out of
in
Victoria.
Birchgrove. Do you know where Birchgrove is?
Yeah,
Is
I
anyone
do.
learning anything from
I'm
this?
not
Or are we
learning.
just listening to
I'm
you
just
guys
going to
have a
cut into
date?
this and say, if anyone has any questions, I think just put
What are the questions?
put a Q in front of your comment.
Can you not do Q? We're going to get... It's Q and A.
Okay, if anyone has
Put a
any questions,
QAnon
put
and
QAnon.
hashtag Yemini.
Put QAnon in front of your comments, and they will know it's a question.
Let me know it's a question. Oh, so you haven't been doing that the whole time? So you
No,
don't-
I just realized there's just random people comments, and I
was
can't
just
figure out
filling.
what to say. But
Is everyone bagging out Joel?
No, the Chantelle. Someone did say, Chantelle, speak the King's English, please.
Ooh, that's...
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
You don't know what that means.
No, I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Oh, probably.
Immigrants. And we're letting this guy vote for the future of our country, and he doesn't know what King's English is.
I'll tell. Yeah, as a Sri Lankan, we were a part of the British monarchy long before New Zealand or Australia, as far as I'm concerned.
Look at that flex.
Yeah.
Look at that flex.
So I've been a subject of colonialism for a much longer time. I'm a long-standing victim.
You should get 2 votes.
Yeah, I should get 2 votes. Anyway, we're waiting for the questions to come in.
Can I just say, no matter how the New Zealand election goes, if you're in New Zealand and you're planning on living there, if you're disillusioned after it, I've had to pick up the pieces in a lot of states where this has happened in Australia. Don't get disillusioned with the electoral process. It means you need to be more involved. Your political parties that used to be conservative, they have been taken over by the cultural Marxists. If you're not a member of a political party, then get involved, join one. You could even join the Greens, and I don't advocate this, but you could even join it.
We're going to have to cut him off.
Yeah, literally, you could even join it.
Don't,
and
but
turn
you
it
could.
into a genuine. No, but like they actually have a democratic party.
There's a lot of things you could
Someone's
do.
saying
You could jump
Chantelle,
off a bridge, but like...
No,
voting-
I'm saying you could turn it into a nuclear.
I mean, it's
pro-nuclear
possible,
party.
but
Like,
is it...
Someone's
viable?
saying,
it's
sorry,
actually
guys.
democratic.
Yeah.
Voting in New Zealand is not mandatory. Is that correct?
No, not
So, but
mandatory.
there's still a high turnout. They're saying.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
votes,
that's
yeah.
absolutely true. It's not mandatory.
How did the
and you
Kiwis
don't have
get
to have an
something
ID.
right?
You don't have to have an ID to vote either.
Oh.
Same
what-
here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Oh, you don't, but you have to give your address and they look you up and they tick you off. Is that the same in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, all right. I mean, sorry. We
There's
I mean, there were
supposed-
some instances
don't
of
start
yeah,
conspiracy
anyway.
theory.
no,
Point
not that.
USA.
I'm saying like with mail-out ballots, we do that here, where you don't have. I mean, you could.
No, but you also walk in. I'm a private vote. I'm a hidden voter or private voter, whatever they call. So you can't find me on the electoral roll.
I've
Sorry.
I've seen it done before, where someone has actually gone to multiple polling booths in the same electorate and voted multiple times. Like it's very easy to get away with, and the lefties
Here, somebody did that.
Mate, in this state, they literally load up buses with people, and they go from polling place to polling place, and they vote multiple times. It's
No,
nuts.
we don't want to get cancelled
By the
forever.
AEC.
That is unsubstantiated. Joel Jammal comes from the Middle East, and they often make up lies, generally about Israel, but in this case, it is about Dan Andrews. And yeah,
I
we
didn't
love
say-
the leader. Dan Andrews is fairly elected. In fact, I voted for him
There you go.
in multiple electorates.
I didn't say Dan Andrews, but I've got anecdotal evidence from people where they said they rocked up to the polling place and they couldn't vote because
I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm just saying I don't want to get banned.
I don't blame you. No, I agree with we have to add the
Can I put in a
caveat.
cheeky
We have
plug
to
for
add
something? If people do want to know what's going on in New Zealand but don't want to have to deal with a lot of the kind of dramatics and manipulation of the mainstream, if you head to thecentrist.co.nz, because that's a new platform that they've started, and they're pulling the greatest like news bits and bits and pieces from independent creators, just pulling like cherry picking the best parts and putting it on there, thecentrist.co.nz. And so it's a great way for people to get informed really quickly from a whole lot of different media personalities and content creators and everything.
Are they
like
getting
that.
funding from the $50 million?
No.
Oh.
Oh, Chantelle, can you tell us about your dad? So
Yeah.
he ran the what's he running in? Which party is he running in?
Yeah, so my dad is Leighton Baker, and he's running the Leighton Baker Party. And the reason he went with his own name is because both my father and I have been heavily censored over the last couple of years, whether or not by the government or, well, actually, yes, it was. But anyway, we've both been heavily censored, but he grew a lot of popularity during the protests, the March protests that we had where people camped at Parliament for 23 days. And so he was polling, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 months ago, at around 3.9% for preferred Prime Minister. And anyone that's tried to run a minor party will know it's incredibly expensive to try and market a brand or a name in time for the election, let alone get any media coverage. So he's gone under his own name to make it easier for people to actually find him and vote for him and vote for the party in general.
So as I said before, you guys have merged your Senate with your lower house. So there are seats where you have senators where it's all that votes added together. What percentage does he need to get in? So he said he was polling at 3-point-something%. What percentage does he need across?
5% of the party vote, or you need to win at least, or you need to win a seat effectively, just one seat and one electorate. So he'd have to run, or you'd have to have a candidate win an electorate, which is around roughly, very loosely, like 18,000 votes.
Yep.
And like depending on which electorate, obviously, but very roughly about that to get a candidate in.
So in New Zealand, you're given 2 ballot papers. I feel like I'm in election mode. You're given a candidate vote for your specific area, and then you're given a party vote, which is all the votes added together from across the country.
Yeah.
And he is running as the party, so all the votes.
Party, and he'll be a candidate as well.
Right.
Yeah, so you can do both. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So you can do a party. I mean, saying he is the party, he'll have candidates that are standing with him in the party. So they'll have the party vote. It's under his name only just because of marketing reasons and affordability before the election. Post the election, they'll change that. So you get the party vote, and then you can also stand a candidate in that electorate as well. So
More power to him. God bless him. I hope he does very well.
yeah. He's a really good person, beautiful heart, great man.
Yeah. Awesome.
But it's always a nightmare.
Questions?
Politics.
Yeah, I got a question here. It says, with New Zealand being such a peace-loving country, why are there so many haters of other viewpoints of the mainstream? Like, they've given Posey Parker as an example, but there does feel like New Zealand, like the people do get pretty angry there against anything that's not mainstream.
It didn't used to be like that. New Zealand did not used to be this polarised. About around 5 years ago, it really kicked in, and that's when the media started to take kind of full control of the narratives and really present narratives in a really polarising way. But New Zealand used to be just the most relaxing, easygoing, loving country. And I believe it still is. I think the vast majority of Kiwis are the best people you'll ever meet. They're kind, they want to help you, they love everyone. They actually want what's best for their country. They're just being misdirected and told that's what's best it's actually things that will destroy it. And so it's just purely come from the media. The media have that much control in New Zealand. And you have to remember, like, here you guys have, I mean, Sky Australia is quite a large channel here. They put out different viewpoints. I mean, you had Karl Stefanovic talking about Stefanovic from 7 or whatever, a major channel, 9, talking about, but he put
his
forward,
brother's on Sky.
yeah, but I mean, you had these quite large voices, well known, speaking out about issues, and that was, even
But that was a
year
bit
ago.
late.
No, but see, New Zealand.
To be fair,
no,
he
but what you
mocked
don't
everyone.
understand, Avi, is New Zealand's never had that. New Zealand's still to this day.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
You've been censored, you do.
I
yeah.
understand more than most, and you can also understand if you go to get the book at therebelfromthestart.com. How good was that? I was just learning from Turning Point how to plug.
That's a lot smoother than that, brother.
But I do understand. I see New Zealand did shock me. The fact that they banned, and they tried to ban Rukshan as well, except they couldn't find.
They tried really hard at the airport.
They did. Nobody knows.
Please.
Nobody knows that from the Freedom of Information documents, from the internal communications. We did see that they were trying to also ban Rukshan, but they realised he wasn't that effective anyway, so they didn't really care that much.
Harmless.
The real reason is they didn't have a fake crime to get him on, so they couldn't stop Rukshan, but they tried really hard in all of it, which is crazy and good because I'm really excited to go to New Zealand now. But it is a mad place, and I never thought New Zealand would end up like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many countries in the world, but New Zealand seems to be always coming up as this place where it's totalitarian, dystopian.
I think they've been encouraged. They've been encouraged by different government agencies. They've been encouraged by the media to become these little horrid activist type people. And it happened even the other day, and my friend posted something on Twitter. The person found his work, sent his work, like the work company shareholder, his tweets and said, "Is this acceptable?" He's just a random person on Twitter with no followers, like no following at all. And so they're prepared now to try and hunt down individuals that they disagree with because they've been empowered to do that by the government. If the government didn't empower that kind of mindset, it would never happen in New Zealand. If the media didn't empower it, it wouldn't happen. But they're calling activists and inciting activism in such an extreme way that this is now the outcome that we get.
What do you think is going to happen when I get there?
I think it's going to be fun, Avi. I'm so excited.
Does Chanel and co, the angry mob that love to beat up on women and love to... The irony of that whole thing is they go on about my fake criminal conviction about a weird episode of me allegedly hitting my ex-wife. Nothing with no proof, nothing that you've ever seen, whilst at the same time celebrating beating up women on the streets at a protest that was in...
I mean, you couldn't make it up. You couldn't make it up. You saw this lady get repeatedly punched in the face. Over 70, she's over 70 years old. You saw them rush at her. You saw them assault women. They don't care about assaulting women.
They don't care
about the ideology.
They don't care about women. But the irony of the whole story is that these are the people that are screaming "woman basher" to me. They're trying to pressure the government to stop me from coming because I pled guilty to a crime I didn't commit 5 years ago, and no one's ever seen me ever be violent, and let alone at women like they were on camera in front of the world, and they justify that behaviour. They pretend like that's... Anyways, I'm just going to calm down. So what do you think's going to happen? We'll go back to that question. Are they going to come out? Are they going to try the Posey Parker on me?
I think they'll definitely try. I don't think they'll be remotely as successful.
But Posey Parker is taller than me.
Is she?
Hang on.
She looks tiny.
Why are you? Hang on. Why are
You
you?
didn't
going
look that
up?
short. She looks very
Is
little.
it a book? Is it a
Yeah,
book sales?
you don't know about this.
No.
Come on, Joel, where have you been? So
No, you're nuts. I'm like, I think that's.
no, because I
You're
thought
gonna need a security man.
No, I am.
Like-
I'm bringing security, but I thought after everything they did, I got approved. So they banned us back then. And I got approved as I finished my book that you can get at rebelfromthestart.com. And you can also, for the Kiwis out there, you can register to join us in Auckland and Wellington. So I thought, because it took a year almost to get the visa approved, where they unlawfully banned me because of a criminal conviction that they knew at the time never reached a threshold. Whether it was real or not, it was irrelevant. It wasn't, just for the record. But even if it was for a real incident, it didn't matter. It didn't meet the threshold, and they knew. And then they dragged their feet for a year, making me jump through every hoop. I did it. And then they approved it thinking I had nothing really to do there. And the truth is, if I didn't have my book, what would I have to do there? I would go there just, as we say in Hebrew, dafka, because I have to make the point and show the supporters a lot of people supported my fight to get there. So I would have gone there and run some stories. But I thought, wow, I come from an ultra orthodox family. You'd know that if you read my book, Joel.
Still waiting for
rebelfromthestart.com.
What are the dates of your tour anyway?
25th, 25th and 26th. So when they said that I got approved, I go, I'm going to go and launch this book, not in Melbourne, where I'm going to do a launch here, but I'm going to kick off the book tour launch in what I call the censorship capital of the world. And we were talking about this the other day. A bunch of New Zealand, or people, I don't know if they're from New Zealand, a bunch of people on Twitter, so they're probably not real anyways. They were complaining that I call it the censorship capital of the world because they think North Korea is worse.
Didn't they ban Jordan Peterson's book, but they were selling Mein Kampf in one of the...
Did they ban Jordan Peterson's book in New Zealand? Because a lot of people were saying they should ban mine.
I don't remember
I think
seeing
they
that,
did.
but okay.
New Zealand?
Look it up, because I remember
Was it
at the
banned
time...
in the country, or was it just one specific bookstore? So
This was around about the time of the Christchurch shooting. It was the same year, from memory.
Can we look this up?
Yeah, I feel like that's something that a bookstore might do, but I don't feel like the whole...
You don't
I don't know what our country's
was
capable of anymore. I just really don't know.
Look it up, because I do recall they definitely banned his book from some stores. But when it came to... there was another guy that put a meme out about how they were selling Mein Kampf, and I was like, how does that make any sense?
Jordan Peterson's book returns to New Zealand bookshops after Christchurch. I think they must have cancelled. Oh, yeah. So Jordan Peterson's popular 12 rules book banned by New Zealand booksellers because of Christchurch mosque massacre. So they were going on Twitter, these people, as soon as the news came out that I was coming to launch my book. They haven't read the book. It's literally about my life. Did you read it?
No, you just sent me a copy.
I sent you.
I'm still waiting.
Do you know what? You're in Melbourne. I've got a box. I'll give you a signed copy. Rukshan will sign it because that matters. But they want to ban my book, which is about my life. They want to erase me.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
So we're coming there, and I'm not actually shorter than Posey Parker. Posey Parker is about at my shoulder. She's a cute little lady. She's tiny. Yeah. Okay.
So
what are you trying to say?
You guys heard the news? She's suing.
Is she suing?
I hope she does. Is she doing it?
I do believe she's
Wait,
suing.
who's she suing?
It was breaking news
opposition
yesterday.
government here.
No, they said she might be suing.
She might be suing.
Yeah.
I reckon she is.
I hope she is.
I reckon she will be.
She should.
And I think that her case is stronger. I was talking
Then Moira Deemings.
I was actually with Moira a couple of days ago in Sydney. So another name drop. There
Just
you go.
bookmark that one. We got another name drop.
No, the credibility. And she said, look, I think that her case is stronger than my one. And I think Moira will win. So I think, she literally called her a Nazi.
I love it. You're also a defamation expert.
Oh, yeah, that's a story for another time.
I should be a defamation expert.
You should, yeah.
I spend more time in court than... So you think they're going to come out? I feel like Chanel is a bit scared to do it because he can't. He thinks that he can't beat me, and they all thought they could beat Posey Parker because she's this little woman, real woman, biological woman, and these grown men knew they could intimidate and chase her out. Where in my case, good luck. It's not that I'm a superhero. It's just that I'm not going down like that.
The protest that you missed. So there was a protest in Wellington, and Rukshan was there, and it was after the big Wellington. Rukshan.
Sorry. I don't mind the Kiwi pronunciation. They say stuff differently.
Excuse me. This is my show.
Yeah.
We call him Rukshan here.
Okay. So old RJ, he was. Okay. So anyway. You were there. You were there. The
person of
protest
colour
happened.
was there.
And it was a decent sized protest, and a whole lot of the opposing people, Chanel's people, came out to counter protest in Wellington. And the way the media shot it made it seem like they were so much bigger, and they were not. They were tiny, and it was predominantly like older white people screaming at this group of predominantly Māori and Pacifica people that they are Nazis.
Yeah, we had
And
that in
they shouldn't-
Melbourne.
And
Yeah.
it was hilarious. And I just kept there laughing and laughing. You'll see in the live stream, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, listen to what you're saying. And they would never come across that line because you had big, strong men supporting their families with their wives on that march. The thing with Posey is people didn't know her. There was only women going to hear her talk. It was just
exactly.
a group of women. It wasn't like you
That's
had a
my
whole lot of
point,
men.
is I don't think they're gonna...
Yeah, no, and I think that you'll have a whole lot of men. And if I was you, I'd do a shout out to the Freedom and Rights Coalition because they're massive dudes, and they've got your back if you need help. I'm sure.
I really like the Freedom... What is it?
Freedom and Rights Coalition.
Freedom and Rights Coalition. Boys.
Guys,
Lads.
I just found the tweet. So this is from Tim Pool in 2019, and double check this online. But they have Jordan Peterson from this store at the time. I won't name it, so it's protect you guys. But they were selling Mein Kampf, but they had banned his book.
Yeah.
I mean,
Same
that does
store.
not surprise me. No.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me. It's
I think you
upside
should
down.
have both. I think sunlight's the best disinfectant, but I mean,
Absolutely.
this is nuts. Like really, like Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life. Even Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks, a left-leaning organisation, said it's a good book. It's about self-help. It's about getting people's life on track, no matter your political position. Get your room in order before you criticise the world. Brilliant, But no, that was the reason Christchurch happened.
People are saying, "Oh, we should stop talking about your book."
Mate,
They're telling you to pipe down. I agree with them. I did this last
they
week.
obviously haven't read the book at rebelfromthestart.com.
Look, man, the man's going to sell his book. It makes sense, Like you're proud of your work. How long did you work on it?
Like a year.
I
I didn't graduate. Well, if you read the book, I
Don't
never
give me more reason to
graduated
talk
from
about the book. We should talk about something else.
No, I didn't graduate from year 8. So a year it probably would have taken you an hour.
Yeah, but my point is you're proud of it. When people don't sit on articles, but with the book, if you've been working on it for a while and you've had to not
I
tell
like
the
that Joel's
story.
being nice to me.
I'm being overly nice.
That's pretty nice.
Middle Easterner says.
I bet you he's going to go on another show tomorrow and he's going to go Avi Yemini.
Watch.
Avi Yemini. Name drop.
Yeah, Avi Yemini. I just give credit when it's due, man.
Thank you, brother.
That's how
Thank
I
you.
am.
But
I
now you
mean,
need to
you
read
name
it.
dropped Moira before he did. You actually said it and then he followed it up. So I feel like
That's
I
right.
was
a little bit of
helping him.
hypocrisy.
He's not being
okay.
nice. He's not being nice. Not
Wow.
at all.
Wow. I'm getting called out by the Kiwi in the room.
Yeah, bloody Anzacs. This
We
is what
just sit
happens.
here, we
That
just
is
watch.
what
Ow.
happens. This is what happens when we try to invite them in.
It is a joke. Like this, like the fact we've got a Sri Lankan, we've got an Israeli, we've
It
got
sounds
a
like-
Lebanese Syrian dude, and we've got a New Zealander, a Kiwi.
I feel like it is the
It's the
start of a joke.
We almost had an American here as well.
Wait, can
which
I
we
actually
won't
ask you guys something? Because you are a diverse bunch in front of me. What do you actually genuinely think about racism as a problem in Australia?
non-existent.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced
Nah,
that?
look, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends.
I'm experiencing it now in a weird way. Like I grew up in like a suburb called Dandenong, and this is a very multicultural suburb, and it's pretty rough in the 90s. And like I didn't experience the level of the style of racism that I'm experiencing today. And I'm not saying racism exists to a large extent in this country.
Yeah, I
But-
take back what I said, by the way.
Yeah, there is a type of racism where there's people like myself and Joel and in many ways Avi, like, you know, I'm a person of color, but I have certain conservative views. There is this type of racism where they look at me and they're like, you're not allowed to have those type of views. You're not allowed to be patriotic. You can't love Australia. You can't, say you wouldn't vote for The Voice. Like, that's not what your people should be doing in this country. There is that type of racism. I don't know if that's racism.
Yeah.
But that is
There-
something, and that does
yeah.
exist in this country, and I'm seeing that more and more. The more vocal that I've been, and actually just said what I want to say as a person of color, as an immigrant, whatever. I don't care about those terms. But the more I speak my mind, the more I get pushback from mostly white people, telling me that you can't have those views because you guys belong in this certain box.
Candace Owens
you know.
said something like that. She said the most dangerous day in my life was when I stopped thinking with my skin color.
Yeah, exactly.
like, oh,
the
yeah.
moment,
That's a good point.
100%. Like with this whole lockdown thing, the moment I started speaking about what I think, and you know, with these issues that we're having in our state in particular, that's when I really felt that I might actually be an outsider in this kind of system that they want to have in this country, where they do want people to fit into boxes and go a certain way.
I was saying to the guys before, because we've all copped, hits in the media. So in New South Wales, it's been fairly an interesting situation. Turning Point USA is obviously run by a white dude, Charlie Kirk, and Turning Point in the UK similarly. Whereas in Australia, it's me. It's a Lebanese dude, and these eyebrows don't lie, and this beard doesn't lie. And so the funniest thing is watching the media not cover me, because they don't know what box to put me in. It tells you everything you need to know about the left. So there is that racism. There's overt racism against white people. Pauline Hanson tried to put a motion up, I think in 2020, saying it's okay to be white. Obviously didn't get up. The idea, it was symbolic, but the idea, it depends what the question is. I mean, I can definitely say in my lifetime, and this is very broad, have I been walking in the street at night and a woman has crossed to the other side of the road because they can see my Middle Eastern perspective? Yeah. I don't know why.
Do you think it's Middle Eastern, or do you think it's just because you're
a man? It could be a male.
Because I cross if there's men.
It's happened with dudes. It's happened with dudes as well. But look, I get it, and I would probably understand it, and maybe I'd even do the same. But the thing is, it depends. You got to be specific. Have I ever been held back in terms of moving up in the world because of being Middle Easterner? No. I've had equality of opportunity. I've had more so, and I think that a lot of people, there's a bigger danger of overcorrecting than undercorrecting, and prioritizing, equality of outcome over equality of opportunity and meritocracy. I think that's the bigger danger now. Douglas Murray always talks about.
I think you're right. No, it's all right to quote people, but it's like last time I spoke to Douglas Murray, he told me that. But no, I agree with you. And there are always idiots in society. Growing up, I wore a kippah as a kid, as an ultra orthodox, and we always had, on Shabbat walking to synagogue, so on the Sabbath on every Saturday, there was always one or two cars that scream something as they drove by, cursing out Jews. And today, probably online, you see from all extremes, from the far left to the far right to the Islamic extremists to any group that has a problem with Jews. I see that, and I'm probably more sensitive to that as a Jew, and especially not as the establishment Jew. Our community, I blame a lot for a lot of things. Like the what's the organisation in the States that we have the same thing here, that are very much into the censorship? Oh, how have I gone?
Oh, Southern Poverty Law?
No, the other one is...
AJL?
Yeah, the ADL.
ADL, is it? Yeah.
Is it
I think it's
the American Defamation League.
Yeah,
so here we have... there's another one here. The same.
Yeah.
And I blame those organisations for a lot of what they do, which is pushing the censorship, pushing the narrative, and then all kind of sides attack Jews and put all of us into this one box of organisations that don't actually represent a lot of Jews, and especially what I would consider real Jews. You're talking about practicing. The funny thing is, practicing Jews are really conservative. You just don't hear much from them because they're in their own enclave and doing their own thing.
They're not evangelical. They don't go out.
No, it's actually against the Jew, for Jews to do that. So they stick to their own. And the only Jews that kind of are evangelical are Chabad Jews, but it's only to other Jews.
Right.
So you're not meant to try bring people to Judaism. You're actually meant to... Anyways, that's another whole discussion.
But with Aussies, though, one thing I love about them, and maybe this is what you experience as well, is we love taking the piss out of each other. So when I was in school, there's just teenagers talking, so it's very edgy. They would say, Joel, you're the bomb, and I'd come back at them. A lot of them were Asian friends, and one of them would get a speck of dust in their eye, and I'd say that's impossible because they've obviously got slanty eyes. Now, I think a lot of Aussies, the way we've gotten past racism is by having jokes, even as a teenager, and it being very crude. But I think that, and even with yourself, I mean, Avi, when you make the Jewish jokes, I think we're all mates, we all have a beer.
Yeah.
But what I noticed, and this happened, when Damien Costas brought Milo Yiannopoulos out a few years ago. Milo, he tried to do Aboriginal jokes.
Oh.
Now, you can't come to our country and joke about our Aboriginals and maybe, problems that they may have and just think you're going to get away with it. That's when the Aussies, they're like, that's our guy, sort of thing. We sort of close ranks. But yeah, I think humour
I
is
remember
an
that.
important
People,
part.
it was tasteless, and I think when you were talking before about the fact that there's not the same respect that they have for Maori culture, but people still also do feel like Indigenous Australia deserves some sort of respect and recognition. We don't just make fun of it. I think he was making jokes about the didgeridoo and their art, and which is something that, which is one of the things that we've always, I think, respected and loved in Australia. I think most Aussies today, the things that they're frustrated about is the woke left-wing push from fake Aboriginals for things that don't matter, like changing the flag, changing the anthem, the vote to part, all these things that when we went to Alice Springs didn't matter to the locals. In fact, some of the things they told us we couldn't put online because they were their issues are real, and they actually didn't see colour in the way that they talk about it here in inner city Melbourne.
Yeah, they actually hate them. Like the 20% of Aboriginals that are in rural Australia, they actually hate the voice. I just got back from WA, and there are two rival tribes over there. They hate each other. One of them is the Noongar tribe. I forgot the name of the other one.
Are you telling me Aboriginal tribes hated each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, look at the map. There's a lot of them. But they were both saying, we were never consulted about the voice. This is about the establishment Aboriginals in Canberra. They want to make it nice and simple and conglomerate all the Aboriginals under one voice. As Winston Peters said in New Zealand when talking about the Australian voice, he says, what makes you think that all these Indigenous sort of people have the same voice? They definitely don't. In WA, did you guys see the story about them doing the smoking ceremony?
Yeah, that was great.
And then they commissioned one group, and then another
and
group
how
said,
uncomfortable
this is
the minister
turn.
was.
Yeah, and then the journalist comes up to him and says, do you reckon you got this wrong, Minister?
Yeah.
She's like,
that was a moment missed for us. But that goes back to what you were saying, Rukshan. I think we should, in a second, wrap up with maybe questions. But it goes back to what you're saying, even with the Aboriginal, is that, white Australia or the white activist class in a city, that's probably a more correct description of them. They're the ones that say, you're the wrong ethnic if you have diversity of thought. You're not the diversity we want.
Yep.
We want the immigrants that stay in their lane, that advocate for all the things we want. The Aboriginals like Jacinta Price, who lives in the heart of it, in Alice Springs. So she lives a couple of hours, I think it was, from Alice Springs in, rural central Australia. She's the wrong one.
They call her a coconut. Like it's complete. It's like where's the hate speech laws?
Exactly.
Where's the hammer coming down? I mean, they call me the Lebanese face of white supremacy. That's the sort of message I get.
You're the bomb to me.
There it is.
And look, I just want to say, like, there is this thing that a lot of people don't discuss with migrant populations, because migrants come to this country sometimes with nothing from war-torn countries as refugees, and they excel in Australia with the opportunities that are available to them. And there is a thing that, in certain subcontinental communities even, they look at Aboriginal people sometimes as being inferior, not because they themselves believe that, but because the other people around them, the white people around them, are telling them that these people are victims, that they're inferior, that they can't raise to that same level without being given this helping hand. And this type of affirmative action, I think in the long run, actually does something damaging to the younger Aboriginal kids that can't aspire to the same kind of things. Like in America right now, we're having this type of affirmative action thing being rolled back because you're having issues where it's impacting the rest of society as well, and it's not really helping the society in terms of African Americans the way that they thought it would. I think we're going to see those same kind of problems here if we go through with these things like The Voice, and we have this style of affirmative action in Australia, that a lot of migrants will look at Aboriginal people as being inferior. I'm not saying that in a negative kind of connotation. I'm just saying in general, there is that difference because being an Asian, a South Asian, we really want to excel. Like, we come to this country, we don't see these like barriers and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
or at least it didn't used to be that way.
And they don't want to rock the boat, and that's something I've noticed with a lot of immigrant populations. They have imposter syndrome where they're like, I'm here, it's an amazing opportunity. Maybe in Lebanon, the government can't stand upright, you know, but I'm here and I don't want to rock the boat, I want to follow the government and they respect the law. Whereas it's like, no, you need to engage in the democracy, otherwise it'll become like the very countries we fled.
100%.
You know, and the left take advantage of that imposter syndrome that
100%.
a lot of us immigrants
And that
have.
is why I'm voting no, because I do feel like I don't, in my heart of hearts, when I look at an Aboriginal person, I don't see them as being different to me or needing a helping hand or being inferior to me. I see them as capable as I am. And the fact that these people around me, these white people in this country in Australia, keep telling me that they're inferior, I find it offensive because that's not how it should be.
Yeah.
And I think that's very problematic that we're heading down this path in this country.
Where's the voice for the veterans?
Benji, that was a real. Just
That was so
absolutely.
good.
yeah, that was good. I just cut that one and
Mark the time, get it.
then
Clip,
end
clip,
it with it's the okay to be white symbol. Oh, cut that
my
one. Oh, you always have to ruin it. Do we have a couple of comments
Yes,
before
questions
we?
for Avi. I'm not receiving emails from Rebel. Are you still with Rebel?
Wow.
Check your spam.
Like, didn't you hear his plugs? He plugged it like
Did you
10
really know?
times.
If you're not getting emails, send me an email, avi@rebelnews.com, and we'll check what happened to the system. We do send out a couple of emails a week, so you should be getting them, and most of them would be telling you to buy the book at rebelfromthestart.com.
And I think, so Chantelle, while you're here, now that obviously Trump's not here, what's your plans? How long are you here for in Australia? What are you?
Only a couple. We're only here in Melbourne for a couple more days,
Okay.
and then Jacob, my gorgeous cameraman / husband,
Yeah.
we got married at the beginning of the year and never took a honeymoon. So we're going to take about a week
Mazel
and go to the Gold
tov.
Coast.
Congrats, yeah.
Where are you going?
Amazing.
Gold Coast?
Gold Coast, yeah, just going to Goldie. I tried to look at sunshine, but then I realised it was just too much effort and I'm too tired.
Nah, Gold Coast is good.
Yeah, just want to relax, go somewhere nice and just enjoy it. So we're going to do that for a bit. But yeah, we're just going to do as many interviews as we can over these next couple of days and meet as many people as
How are
we
you
can.
finding it here?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, you used
What
to
do you-
live here.
I used to live here. It's like
How's your
coming
husband
home.
finding it?
What do you
Don't
thinking?
ask him. Don't ask him. You talk for him like every good relationship.
Me, straight to him. I'm like, how do you feel, honey?
How do
he
you
just-
feel, honey? Do you love it?
It's like, get me outta
Jake
here.
does not care where he is. He just needs to be fed. So as long as
So
I
he's a
feed
man.
him, he is fine. Yeah. And the minute he gets grumpy, I'm like,
Does
let's
he
have
eat
some
a
food
lot?
and talk about it. So much food. It is terrifying.
We want to be the judges of that. What was today?
What did you have today? You had
Breakfast.
far out. I'm trying to remember because we started early at the airport. A scone, a coffee, food on the plane, another breakfast,
So that's all
A
before
bun.
6 a.m.
and a burger
That's all.
and a
About,
Red Bull.
Red Bull's not food. I don't know. Do you eat that in New Zealand?
I'm just like, I don't know. That's off the top of my head, but he does eat a lot.
So he does eat a lot.
Yeah.
He's-
As
he
he
looks
should. He's a
alright
man.
for someone that eats a lot.
Yeah, he's a beautiful man. He should be allowed to eat.
He's built.
He's a big unit.
He's a unit, yeah.
Well, he needs to be because he protects me from all the crazy people.
Are you calling Rukshan crazy?
That explains
It's not
a lot.
very nice.
And Chantelle, where can people find, if they haven't found your work before, where can they find you?
So operationpeople.com. You can look me up on Instagram. I've started a new Facebook, but I haven't even put
Are you
one
on
post
Threads?
on it.
Are you on Threads?
I am on Threads. I don't know. I don't plan on doing
You're
anything
one of the
on it.
100 million people that signed up. Who also happen to have Instagram accounts?
I mean, I the only thing I put out was basically calling out beige mums for saying that Threads is their safe space from Twitter.
Just be
and that
careful,
might
you
be
get
the only
banned.
tweet. That might be the only tweet I ever do. I don't know on Threads. I don't know. But I like Twitter a lot more. Twitter's more fun.
Twitter's fun.
It's more
Yeah.
fiery.
Yeah.
You know, it's got more interesting people on Twitter.
That's right.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say?
So
Influencers
cringe.
from Instagram aren't interesting.
Oh my gosh.
No, they're interesting to a certain demographic.
I mean, Avi, you're
or a
not too
certain
bad,
thing.
but everyone else is a bit rough.
Where on Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Rukshan's bad.
I'm gonna have to put our photos in bikinis and stuff on Threads to actually
Just
Can
so
you
they
please
keep our
do that?
accounts.
like that's the stuff that gets
That
traction.
actually, I think and you in a bikini would get traction. I think you're not
I
wrong.
would share it.
yeah, I might actually even win Miss
I would
Australia.
also share that.
Do you know there's one photo that my haters always share whenever they get angry
Is
in
it
the
you
comments.
in the dress?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only know because I've seen it. I was like, where did this come from? I was
He
like,
was,
that's quite
he, was,
funny.
he was actually ahead of the
done a
trend. He was ahead, he was ahead of
You
the
know what the
curve.
funny thing is? They share it, and these it's usually the left wing tolerant mob that are all angry if you make fun of a man being a woman, and then they take a photo that I uploaded myself to Instagram for bans of me wearing a dress and doing, and somehow that's meant to hurt me. I just,
more power to you.
I know.
You can
LGBTQI, LGBT. I did it before it was cool.
Brother, absolutely. Rebelnews.com.
And
Rebel from the start.
Joel, Turning Point Australia, obviously. Don Jr. will be back at some point.
Yeah,
even though the who was it? The minister, the Home Affairs minister, called him a crybaby.
Oh yeah, I was looking at a
She
tweet
called
before.
her
That was funny.
Crybaby, and
This is her tweet because I want it to be immortalised. Thank you, Shari Markson, for screenshotting it. She said, "Geez, Donald Trump Jr. is a bit of a sore loser. His dad lost an election fair and square, but he says it was stolen. Now he's trying to blame the Australian government for his poor ticket sales and cancelled tour. Well, that's bullcrap because we had 8,000 ticket sales, and that's decent by any measure in Australia." Then she said, "Donald Trump Jr. has been given a visa to come to Australia. He didn't get cancelled. He's just a big baby who isn't very popular."
I just want to correct you there because, maybe Shari did screenshot it, but one person that really screenshotted and got it out first was Rukshan. Because what happened was...
notifications on.
No, because what happened was at the time I was retweeting her one from you, and then suddenly I noticed it was gone. I'm like, Rukshan, it's gone. Did you screenshot it? He goes, yes. And he sent me it and I was able to tweet it out.
First rule of Twitter is if you read anything from a crazy lefty, screenshot it. Because they're cowards, they will most likely
always delete it.
They always delete it when they get called out.
I had so many journalists calling me up saying, "Oh, wouldn't your comment on this?" And I was like, I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
No one knew she was there.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, if you want to find my work, with the tour, the dates are being announced this week. We've got new dates. We're just waiting on Don Jr. to 100% confirm them. And so hold on to your tickets because we're going to definitely sell more tickets because of this. I mean, the idea
it's almost like you planned it.
You might even think so. What is this?
I did contemplate
This
it.
is the Controlled Opposition
The
podcast, right?
Controlled Opposition podcast where you have the Zionists and their...
It's going to sell out.
Stooges.
Definitely Brisbane and Melbourne will sell out. But Sydney is the larger venue. I think that it's going to go very well. But no, it wasn't a problem of popularity, that's for sure. It's just the government's being idiots. And obviously there was the police intimidation in Dan Andrews, Victoria. But if you want to follow us, if you want tickets to Trump Live, go to trumplive.com.au. But Joel Jammal or Turning Point Australia, whatever you search up, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Telegram, Rumble, Twitter, we're everywhere.
Yeah, you're on
does everyone have Threads? I haven't even been on it. I've heard it's terrible, so I'm just like, I don't need another one to be banned on. Guys, I mean, I do election coverage. I'm hoping to get some coverage done of New Zealand and with your election in October. But interesting things coming very soon. But I'll give Chantelle the opportunity. I've still got my election cap on. Your dad is running, obviously, and I hope he does get in. How can people support your dad? What's the website to get to him?
Yeah, the website's leightonbakerparty.co.nz. They did have the .com. I'm just not sure if it's active or not. So leightonbakerparty.co.nz. It's Leighton, Leighton. And the funny thing about his name is that his dad named him that in case he was going to be a politician. And instead he's been a builder his whole life.
Seriously.
Yeah, so he went into building so he wouldn't be a politician. And now look at him go.
Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And I think that the politicians that had the guts, the intestinal fortitude to show up to the protests should get elected. In fact, in New South Wales, my home state in Sydney, we got John Ruddick up and he was served with a fine at a protest that I was at and I actually spoke at. And I think that those politicians, those people that stood out there should be rewarded for that behaviour, whereas the establishment ones should see that, there's actually a market for these values and then they'll start adopting them. So God bless you, God bless New Zealand, God bless your father. I hope you guys do very well.
Thank you so much.
On that note, I want to thank both of you for joining us. Welcome to Australia. Hope
Joel?
Yeah, enjoy.
Get out
from the Middle East.
Yeah, from the Middle East.
And enjoy your stay here in Victoria. But I'm sure you'll enjoy Gold Coast a lot better, not just for the weather, but for the freedoms. I feel like it's a freer place.
If you
Thank
have,
you.
yeah, if you haven't got accommodation, I know it's tough. Let us know. We know people. There's heaps of places.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's an Arab thing. They know people.
No, I was there. I
The
almost slept on the
accommodation
street.
will go off.
It's his cousin's basement.
I know. There are no Middle Easterners up there.
And to all of you at home, thank you for spending the night with us. Make sure to share it far and wide. You can catch up with all our episodes at theopposition.show. And I get it. Rukshan, was the music better this time? I can't even...
Nice, same music. Thanks for watching, guys. We will next time have a better process for getting your comments up here as well. And I will continue to improve this show. Even Avi doesn't do anything for these shows. I do everything. He just comes here and complains.
It's pretty.
Literally, that's what he
it.
does. Yeah, I did all of this.
That
setup.
is
I
what the
did
puppet
everything.
master is
Sells his
supposed
book.
to do.
That's
He
right.
sits here, he makes money, and he tells you what to do.
All right, guys. Just
Zionist out.
See you guys next time.
God damn it.